quote that always resonated with me is from my favorite childhood movie, Matilda. It is all about a strong, intelligent young girl in an unfortunate situation, taking control and determining her own destiny, because most of the adults in her life have ignored her. The quote that stuck out to me most was, "Listen, you little wise. I'm smart, you're dumb. I'm big, you're little. I'm right, you're wrong, and there's nothing you can do about it." This quote reminds me a lot of what I was told as a child. Fortunately for Matilda, she was able to stand up against her parents who have dismissed her most of her life. She found a home where she felt safe and seen. Silencing children is a systemic problem. Take Kira's story. According to Kira's Champion website and a Time Union article about Kira's law, Kira wasn't even 2.5 years old. She wasn't old enough to speak for herself in court. However, many others tried to advocate for her. The judge decided that it was in Kira's best interest to have an unsupervised visitation with her father. Kira's story doesn't have a happy ending. In fact, that visitation was her ending. Kira is one of 38 children in New York since 2016 who have been killed by a parent due to a custody dispute, separation, or divorce. These deaths are not accidents. They are the result of a system that continues to avoid making hard decisions and would rather send parents and kids to evaluator after evaluator than face decisions head on. How about when children do speak up and are punished for it? Even when a child is old enough to speak for themselves, their voices are often dismissed. In another case in 2015, a family court judge sent 3 children, aged 9, 10, and 15, to juvenile detention because they refused to speak to their father. The reason? The reason that the oldest said that he refused to speak to his father was not only because he deemed him abusive, but because also he had seen him hit their mother. The children were in juvenile detention for over 2 weeks separated from their father. The judge decided that the mother was poisoning the kids' attitudes towards the father and ordered them to maintain a healthy relationship with them. This sends a chilling message. Speak up and you may be punished. Even when a child is old enough to speak in court, their voices are often dismissed. At what age does a voice count? At what age does the truth become valid? I was 14 when I first spoke up to myself. I just turned 18. My stance has never changed. Truth does not mature with age. It only becomes harder to ignore. Even when a child is old enough to speak up for themselves, their voices are often dismissed, as I said, and courts often say that their preferences may be considered but never as the sole factor. A law in California allows children to speak in custody cases only if the judge decides that it won't be harmful to the child. This decision can be made without ever speaking to the child. This has me wondering, how can a judge determine whether being heard will cause harm without listening? The core message. Children evolve, they learn, they grow, but their sense of fear, safety, and truth does not magically change with age. When a child is crying for help, we must listen. We should not filter their voice through adult agendas. We should not dismiss it as manipulation. We should not silence them because it's inconvenient to us. Every day, voices are judged based off age, gender, ethnicity, and power. Children often sit at the bottom of this hierarchy, and the cost of ignoring them can be fatal, because when children speak and no one listens, the system is working exactly as it's designed to, and it's time to rebuild. A different model is possible. Different countries do things differently. In Scotland, laws such as the Children's Scotland Act of 2020 allows children to speak to judges whenever they are old enough to speak of you, form of you. This can be regardless of their age. The judge must document how the child's views were gathered, how those views were considered, and why certain decisions were made. Children are not treated as narrators of their own life. They're treated as humans, equal to adults. They're given a platform to speak for themselves and given the respect they deserve. This should be the criteria all over the world. A girl recently told me her story and allowed me to share it with everybody here, so I thought I would share it. Her family entered the court system in 2022 after her parents divorced. What was supposed to be an open and shut case turned into a 5-year-long custody battle. The judge assigned to their case refused to speak to the children directly, and instead sent them from professional to professional, each hearing a piece of her story, but none hearing it fully. Eventually, they were sent to a mediator who, surprised, refused to listen to them directly, and then sent back to a reunification therapist who told them that he would. write a letter to the judge saying that they shouldn't be forced back to their fathers. Guess what? He did. Then the original reunification therapist sent them to his colleague while still manipulating behind the scenes, even after her sister expressed how she was locked out of the house and told to go find a new family. No actions were taken. I myself have had issues in the child court system. Now, the girl told me how she experienced things similar to mine. CPS was called on her family, on her dad specifically. She was told that psychological and mental abuse are hard to prove. She was told that there were clearly lines crossed and boundaries broken. Inappropriate comments were made. The case was closed. Then the caseworker told her something she would never forget. It would have been better if you were physically hit. She was 15, being told that physical violence was the only way to escape her mental and emotional abuse her father was putting her through. For me, I didn't just sit with my pain. I decided to do something about it. I testified in front of legislative committees about a bill. It focused on legislation that would collect data on children's mental health in New Jersey and the various departments and agencies that serve kids. It created a statewide mental health map that created a place where children could be documented. It ensured warm handoffs for kids identified to need help in school, at their annual physical, or when they confide in a trusted friend or adult. My next action was speaking to Senator Lagana about sponsoring a bill. I told him how important it was that people who worked and were involved in the system that affected me heard from me directly, heard my experience, and took my critiques to heart. The bill clarifies procedures in certain contested custody cases. It changes how courts handle these cases and limits when a judge can order reunification therapy and requires proof that it's safe and effective. It makes sure that the professionals who are working with the child, whether it be a therapist, a psychologist, whoever they feel the most comfortable and safe with, are able to speak and are taken seriously. The solution is simple, but it requires courage. Awareness that emotional and psychological abuse are real and damaging. Willingness to hear children directly. Standards that prioritize safety over convenience. And accountability for courts to explain how children's views were considered. Child advocacy begins with one simple act: listening. All you need is a voice and an advocate who truly cares for you and cares about your life.